Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the 12 Clocks mystery, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing in Whispers in the Fog is ever what it seems. The howl of the wind clawed through the ancient trees surrounding the stately manor, a shroud of darkness looming as ominous as the gathering storm. In the flickering candlelight of the drawing room, the shadows seemed to dance with a life of their own, while the weight of an uninvited presence filled the air, smothering the last flickers of warmth. It was in this disquieting ambiance that a chilling cry shattered the tense silence, echoing from the corridor beyond. A sound so raw and primal, it ignited dread in the hearts of those gathered. As the guests rushed toward the source of the cry, a pallid figure lay sprawled across the aged wooden floor, eyes wide with terror, lost forever in a moment of panic. Victor Harrington, the esteemed philanthropist and host of this dreary assembly, now lifeless, a thin line of crimson staining the collar of his immaculate white shirt. His last moments, stolen by a malevolent force, placed a sinister pall over the proceedings as eyes darted back and forth, suspicion clawing at the delicate fabric of civility. From the shadows a composed figure emerged, a gentleman immaculate in his tailored suit, lips pursed and mustache impeccably groomed. It was Hercule Poirot, renowned detective, who had been lingering at Harrington Manor for an evening of dubious charity. His keen mind absorbed the chaos, dissecting the unfolding drama with the meticulous precision of a seasoned surgeon. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he muttered as he stepped closer to the body, the sight invoking an unnerving cocktail of curiosity and chill within him. The guests now huddled together like hunted animals, their eyes revealing a tapestry of emotions: fear, guilt, and perhaps relief. Among them stood Eleanor Harrington, the widow, her face an ashen mask of shock. Yet in that ashen pallor, Poirot discerned a flicker of something else. Was it relief mingled with grief? Then there was Thomas Reed, the business partner, who seemed to tremble beneath the weight of his own thoughts. His demeanor, usually filled with bravado, was rendered vacuous by uncertainty. And lastly, the ever-aloof Rosalind Blackwell, Harrington's estranged sister, whose lifelong resentment towards her brother seemed at odds with her feigned sorrow. Each of them concealed a dark secret, Poirot mused, a complex web waiting to be unraveled. As the oppressive storm outside raged and the candle flames flickered with menace, Poirot began his inquiry, his mind an elaborate engine whirring into motion. "Permit me, mes chers," he said, his voice steady and commanding, "to inquire as to your whereabouts at the moment of this dreadful occurrence." He turned first to Eleanor, whose gaze flickered, perhaps in reflection of her inner turmoil. I was in the library, reading," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper, the tremor unsettling. "And you, Monsieur Reed? Where were you in this hour of terror?" Poirot inquired, allowing a brief silence for effect. Reed cleared his throat, the tension tangible as he shifted. "I stepped outside for some air. Victor and I were arguing about the charity's direction." A gleam of something beneath the surface caught Poirot's attention, but Reed's words cloaked vital truths in layers so thick that they threatened to suffocate the very air. When pressed further, he brushed off Poirot's queries, framing his hastily contrived alibi with an urgency that only inflated Poirot's suspicion. Poirot's sharp gaze shifted to Rosalind, the enigmatic sister, who leaned against the mantel, arms crossed defiantly. "And you, mademoiselle? Surely you must have seen something." "No." The words dripped with calculated emphasis, as Poirot noted Rosalind's clenched fists, the veins in her neck pulsing like drumbeats of suppressed anger. "I was wandering the grounds, finding solace in the storm," she said indignantly, hiding her true feelings behind a veneer of indifference. There lay beneath the surface, Poirot sensed, a tempest more tempestuous than the raging winds outside. As he walked among them, an electric air buzzed with the unspoken thoughts, growing weightier with every passing moment. Yet amidst this tension, he spotted a detail overlooked by the rest, the glint of something metallic protruding from the shadows beneath the side table. With a fluid grace, Poirot knelt to retrieve it, producing a bloodied letter opener, its handle ornate and glistening with malevolence. The room fell silent, the guests' wide eyes reflecting both fear and curiosity, their previous bravado now all but erased as secrets threatened to claw their way to the surface. As the investigation continued to weave a complex pattern of intrigue, Poirot felt the web tightening. Foreshadowings of betrayal loomed in whispered intentions, and the storm that mirrored the chaos churned outside. Yet even within this disarray, he remained resolute, each clue a thread tethering him further into a narrative darker than he had anticipated. With the letter opener now a central figure in this wretched tableau, a keen understanding blossomed within him. This was merely the beginning, for the truth lurked in shadows yet unseen. In the dim light of realization, Poirot clung to a curiosity that tugged at his heart, the duality of human nature, the mask each individual wore shaped by fear and desire. Ah, the enigmatic guest, she emerges, mais oui, he whispered to himself, with every tick of the mantel clock echoing in the silence. The hour of discovery edged closer. He would solve this mystery and reveal to all who lingered in that cursed manner the hidden truths they desperately tried to conceal. Chapter 2. Tick-tock, Secrets Unravel. The storm raged with a fury that mirrored the tumultuous emotions boiling within the heart of Harrington Manor. Thunder crackled like a whip, and the relentless downpour drummed against the windows with a relentless rhythm, creating an atmosphere thick with dread. As the candlelight flickered, shadows stretched and warped across the walls, seemingly alive, hovering over the lifeless body of Victor Harrington. The guests huddled together, their eyes darting nervously, each pulse of the clock on the mantel echoing like a heartbeat in the oppressive silence, a constant reminder of the uncertainty that engulfed them. Among this chaotic tableau, Hercule Poirot remained an island of calm, his mind awash with the complexities of human nature and deception. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he murmured softly, contemplating the scene as he rose from his crouched position. The bloodied letter opener, now a menacing character in this grim play, rested heavily in his hand. He could almost hear the shadows whispering secrets as he turned to the gathered guests, awareness sharpening his senses like a blade honed to deadly precision. Their expressions oscillated between fear and guilt. Each was a player in this macabre theater, masking their true selves behind grins of constrained horror. Eleanor Harrington, the widow, stood gray and rigid amidst the emotional storm. The shock had robbed her of her vibrant spirit, leaving an unsettling stillness behind. Victor's benevolence, often praised in the public eye, had masked his more sinister traits, a revelation she was forced to confront now that his life had been cut short. Poirot caught her eye, and for a fleeting moment he glimpsed something profound, a flicker of begrudging freedom behind the curtain of devastation. Was it relief he sensed, buried deep within the fabric of her mourning? Meanwhile, at the far side of the room, Thomas Reed appeared a specter of uncertainty. The argument regarding the charity's direction had ignited a conflict of interest, yet the weight of that argument now seemed trifling against the magnitude of murder. He shifted uncomfortably, his bravado diminished to a whispering remnant of the man who had once exuded confidence. Poirot observed the beads of sweat, collecting at Reed's brow, the frenetic way he paced near the wine decanter, as if it could somehow quell the tempest within. Rosalind Blackwell presented an enigma wrapped in resentment, her simmering distaste for her brother evident in the extremities of her posture. Victor always sought to control everything. Even the shadows of this manor were his to wield, she had once bitterly remarked, yet her pretense of sorrow hovered like a poorly thrown veil. Deep within her icy demeanor, Poirot sensed the tumultuous churn of jealousy and buried regrets. The estranged sister, so used to hiding under the guise of indifference, now found herself tangled in the web of familial expectation, duty, and volatile desire. With the seeds of chaos sown deep within their fraught exchange, Poirot engaged them in a meticulous dance of inquiry. Tell me, mes amis, have you noticed the curious ticking of the clock? Each tock seems to echo the very heartbeat of secrets untold, he stated. He could almost physically feel the tension mounting as their attentiveness shifted to the ever-echoing clock. Motions became deliberate, glances exchanged beneath the dim light, pivoting toward suspicion. As the conversation progressed, Poirot scrutinized every detail. The way Eleanor avoided eye contact, the dilation of Reed's pupils during moments of sound rationality, and the sharp intake of breath from Rosalind when he mentioned their family's financial misfortunes. Each clue was a brushstroke in a larger painting, but the palette remained muddled, the clarity absorbed by the fog of lies hanging heavily in the air. He drew closer to the clandestine corner of the room where the letter opener had first captured his gaze. As he knelt to inspect the surroundings, he spotted a finely woven tapestry displaced from its frame, a small alcove that spoke of hidden chambers within the manor's architecture. There lay the disturbing detail, a small, torn piece of paper wedged behind the frame, inscribed with the words, "I know your secret." The revelation unfolded like the petals of a flower, each layer exposing deeper motives and clearer rifts among the guests. With newfound insight, Poirot could feel the ambient tension bleed into silence. Ah, here we have secrets intertwining like the roots of those ancient trees outside, he posited, allowing the unsaid to linger in the air. What could it be, I wonder? He raised an eyebrow, momentarily leaving the guests on a precipice of tension, each trembling with the awareness of impending revelation. Splitting the tension with surgical precision, Poirot recounted stories whispered about the Harrington family. Their wealth had rooted itself not solely in philanthropy, but in a 14-year-old scandal, a betrayal that severed ties with those who once shared their affluence. In that moment, the silent music of hearts racing reached a crescendo. They were locked in the dance of uncovering their layered lives, truths lingering, like the singed edges of forgotten letters. It was at this critical juncture that a flash of insight broke like lightning upon him. The card announcing their charitable gala, the one that had served as a lure, could reveal ties once hidden. His mind began weaving anew, conjuring images of malevolent intentions lurking in plain sight. But as he shifted his focus back to the guests, a red herring struck him squarely in the chest, a moment of doubt dancing through his thoughts. Could Eleanor, the widow, have orchestrated it all from the shadowy embrace of grief? As the bell tolled ominously, Poirot gathered the guests into the drawing room once more, the atmosphere thickening with anticipation. "My dear friends, you shall not leave this estate until the truth is revealed," he declared, raising his voice above the thunder. He stepped forward, unfurling the tapestry of secrets, revealing how a conjoined deception wrapped around loyalties intertwined in betrayal. Victor sought control. Yes, but like any great conductor, one must be mindful of the crescendos. He may not have realized he played his final piece. With a deftness born from experience, Poirot unveiled Eleanor as the architect of this symphony of deceit. The truth struck with finality. Her own avarice and desperation had birthed an alliance with Thomas Reed, who, fueling her rage, had hoped to wrest away control of Harrington's legacy, all while concealing their pact behind layers of staged sorrow. The guests recoiled like clockwork figurines, each exposed now as their hidden sins unraveled, thrust into the spotlight of public revelation. But then came the final twist, winding tighter than expected. In a move drenched in tragic irony, Thomas revealed a hidden relationship with Rosalind, sowing seeds of jealousy that trumped their combined ambitions. Through the veil of murder, a tendril of profound love battled tragedy, leaving Poirot to ponder the unpalatable truth. Desire is as fickle as it is fatal. In the aftermath, as tempests continued to thrash outside, Poirot lingered at the door of Harrington Manor, his heart heavy as the remaining guests were escorted from the shadows. "Ah, the lesson of dear Victor lingers in the echoes of this estate," he spoke to himself, his mind a labyrinth of unfinished stories. "It is not the clock that dictates the hour, but the choices that pave the way." And within the layers of betrayal, sorrow washed over him as he understood deeply. Trust, once severed, is nearly impossible to reclaim. Chapter 3. Shadows of the Past. The lightning cracked across the darkened sky, as if tearing apart the very fabric of night, illuminating Harrington Manor for but a fleeting moment, revealing the anguish etched upon each guest's face. With the storm raging outside, the atmosphere in the drawing room, still heavy from recent revelations, became increasingly charged with tension. Upon the very same floor where Victor Harrington had breathed his last, the air now quivered with the looming presence of regret, shadows cast deeper than darkness could convey. Outside, the deluge raged on as Poirot stepped into the tumult, the promise of hidden truths echoing in his mind. Ah, mon ami, the past weaves itself into the present like whispers in the twilight, he mused quietly, noting the subtle differences in the expressions of those who remained inside the manor. The flickering candlelight danced across tired faces, but it was not only the storm that set their hearts adrift, it was their own buried trepidations that now clawed at them. As he settled into the weight of the moment, three figures loomed distinctly against the backdrop of uncertainty. Eleanor Harrington, the widow struggling between mourning and liberation. Thomas Reed, the shrouded adversary whose earlier bravado had subsided into an unsettling guilt. And Rosalind Blackwell, the sister with shadows lingering just beneath her icy veneer. The room, saturated with secrets, felt alive, as Poirot sought to draw those truths from its depths. We must delve deeper, yes. Beneath the layer of sorrow lies the rubble of our memories and motives, he prefaced, observing them closely. Noticing the way Eleanor's fingers fidgeted with her black mourning attire, he caught a fleeting glimpse of fear that sparked something deeper. There, hidden behind her grief, was a flicker of possessiveness, a yearning for something long lost. As he turned his attention to Thomas, the man was pacing, a measured rhythm disrupted only by quiet sighs that punctuated his mounting anxiety. "Tell me, Mr. Reed," Poirot initiated, his voice calm and steady, "did you have a confrontation with the late Mr. Harrington on the eve of his death? You were quite cross regarding the charity, were you not?" I suppose," Thomas stammered with a hint of indignation flickering in his voice, "but I did not wish him any harm." His brow glistened with sweat. The shadows cast by the storm outside played havoc upon his features. Doubt gnawed at Poirot as he considered the man's baleful sweat and stammered denials. Yet something in Thomas's demeanor felt slightly misplaced, as if he was guarding a more profound malice, a resentment quietly nurtured beneath his remorse. Rosalind, meanwhile, had remained uncharacteristically silent, her posture rigid as she eyed Thomas carefully. "What is a mere argument against the fraying bonds of family?" she pressed after a moment, her voice cutting through the tension. After all, Victor's secrets were far more potent than any charity dispute. If one could see behind the mask he wore, perhaps there is more at play. Her spirit teetered between resentment and an unsettling familiarity with the lurking darkness. Could she have known more than she let on about Victor's dealings? Poirot felt the pulse of intrigue swell around the gathered guests. The familiar ticking of the clock echoed insistently, counting down to a precipice of understanding. He stepped away from the emotive thrall of the trio and surveyed the room once again. Glancing toward the tapestry he had recently inspected, he noticed how the flickering light caught the edges of its intricate patterns, momentarily revealing a message woven into the fabric. "I know your secret." Those words resonated like an anthem of despair, a past marred by truth now clawing its way back to the surface. "What do you know of this tapestry, my friends? Such delicate artistry concealing sinister truths," Poirot prompted, eliciting sharp breaths from each corner of the room, shadows shifting uneasily in response to his words. As he turned back to the group, he caught Eleanor's gaze frantically flit to the nearby window, her brows knitting together like branches in the howling wind. "It is just a relic of the family, Poirot. Nothing more. You are reaching at shadows," she protested, her voice teetering on the precipice of panic. Yet her protest held the faintest tremor, irrefutable evidence that shadows danced where the heart dared not tread. Yet Poirot pressed on, spinning tales of familial bonds stained by betrayal. The night wore on, thick with sobering implications. "Ah, but the family tree often holds its share of rotten fruit, does it not?" he remarked with penetrating scrutiny. The backstory of the Harrington family unfolded gradually. Victor had wielded control over them all, leaving them all as mere puppets to his whims, festering resentment growing like a dark vine alongside. His legacy. Stirring the pot of their secrets, Poirot orchestrated a careful interrogation. Nurturing the tension, he seeded questions with the precision of a master gardener, while dousing them in an air of accusation. As Eleanor faltered under his gaze and Thomas's bravado crumbled further, he detected a more pronounced fissure beneath Rosalind's calm demeanor. Unearthing the depths of human emotions, he snared them within a net of silent accusations. In response to his probing, Eleanor seized the chance to deflect his scrutiny. Victor was not merely ruthless. He was a man tormented by his past. I only wish to guard what was left of it. Guard, yes. Something must have happened years ago. An incident in the shadows, perhaps? Poirot suggested, observing the slight paling of her cheeks along with a flicker of recognition. Then it struck him like a sudden gust. An incident in their youth he had unearthed from the depths of his mind. A family scandal involving betrayal and unspoken loyalties that had shaped the very foundation of the Harrington legacy. Refocusing on the trio before him, an idea began to bloom. Was it possible that the siblings had conspired all along, entangled in their shared history of aspirations and loss? The notion felt right, and the potential for betrayal pulsed like storm-laden winds. Then, just as Poirot felt the truth crystallizing between them, an unexpected revelation shattered the gathered tension. There is one last revelation that binds us, Thomas declared, his voice rising amidst the cacophony of the storm. Rosalind and I were not simply siblings struggling for control. We were lovers for years. Gasps reverberated through the manor, and Eleanor's face contorted with disbelief, a mix of shock and bitter recognition crossing her features. Through the storm, the shimmering silhouette of betrayal danced distinctively in the shattered candlelight. Their hearts laid bare as they stood upon a precipice of ruin. With disbelief stinging the air, the mysteries unraveled like a tapestry unfurling its secrets. In that moment of chaos, with emotions laid raw, Poirot felt it, a profound truth resonating far beyond their sins. It struck him how this betrayal, born from desire, had led to the ultimate end of Victor Harrington, entwining them in a web more complex than he had imagined. The clock chimed ominously, and shadows spun darkly as Poirot prepared to denounce their motives. Ah, the tragic irony of human nature, he lamented, his voice cutting through the tension like a shard of glass. To believe you could reclaim lost freedom through deception, only to discover it entangles you further in chains of despair. The truth coursed through him like thunder, a mere heartbeat away from redemption for the morally shattered. As the storm outside reached its crescendo, Poirot glanced at the tapestry once more, it now glimmering ominously under the dim light, echoing the words inscribed. I know your secret. Each guest stood on the precipice, shadows lurking in the fabric of their very despair. As they transitioned from the shadows of the past into the unrelenting dawn that loomed ahead, Poirot left them to reflect on their choices. Dear friends, the hour of reckoning is upon us, a haunting reminder that the past never truly dissipates. Rather, it lingers, tethered to us by threads of our own making. And with his words echoing faintly into the night, the manor was shrouded in an uneasy silence, the weight of unspoken truths lingering heavier than the storm. Chapter 4. A Timely Disturbance. The air crackled with an unnatural stillness, a heavy betrayal that had descended upon Harrington Manor, smothering its very essence. Poirot stood, his elegantly tailored figure outlined against the dim candlelight, when a muffled scream sliced through the thick silence, sending shadows leaping across the walls. His heart raced, a sense of dread stirred within him, rivaling the ferocity of the storm that lashed against the windows. The calamity that had shrouded this estate had not yet reached its climax, and he could feel the lurking tension pulsate through the old bones of the manor. Stepping into the drawing room, Poirot's sharp gaze fell upon Eleanor Harrington, who stood rigid, the handkerchief she clutched to her chest stained with crimson, a stark contrast to her mourning attire. Mon Dieu, what has transpired? he inquired, the calm in his voice a bastion against the chaos that threatened to engulf them. The other guests, pallid and trembling, huddled in corners, their expressions betraying a menagerie of shock and suspicion. Victor's lifeless form had only just begun to congeal in the narrative of tragedy, and already another horror had erupted within its depths. As Eleanor strangled her sobs, she faltered, "It is Thomas. He is dead." The weight of her words hung in the air, a ghostly echo in the room thick with unspoken truce. Poirot felt a tightening in his chest. He had sensed Thomas's restless spirit entwined with guilt and shadow, but to hear of his demise brought forth a shocking twist in the morose tapestry that had begun to unfurl within the manor. The storm outside howled defiantly, and as the flickering candlelight dimmed, illuminating the faces of the remaining guests, Poirot shifted his focus. Thomas Reed, once a figure cloaked in shame, now lay sprawled across the crimson carpet, the glint of moonlight catching an object nestled in his palm. Poirot advanced with measured steps, his mind darting like quicksilver. Despite the horror of the moment, subtle details clamored for his attention. The dagger protruding from Thomas's side bore a gilded handle, one that Poirot recognized belonged to the Harrington lineage, slipped from the very walls that had sheltered generations. Alighting upon this fact, his thoughts quickened, intertwining with the impulse to glean more from what scattered remains of the moment might reveal. "My dear friends, a grievous turn of fate has befallen us, yet we must not lose our clarity. I implore you, remain calm," he urged as he nodded towards Thomas's lifeless form. He noticed the minute distinctions in each character's posture. Eleanor's trembling hands, Rosalind's rigid stance, and the way they exchanged sidelong glances laden with meaning. Shadows coiled around them, the lurking presence of fear making things evidently uncomfortable. Poirot began questioning. "Eleanor, what do you deduce from this heinous act? Was there animosity between yourself and Mr. Reed?" She gulped audibly, casting an irritated gaze toward him, yet her eyes were veiled in trepidation. "I scarcely knew him, monsieur. Yes, he had disputes with Victor, and one might assume our ties were strained, but I had no cause to harm him." Without missing a beat, Rosalind interjected, her voice sharp like a knife. "Ah, but he was hardly innocent, dear sister. Might it not be you who hastened his demise, enveloped in jealousy for the fortune he sought?" Poirot could see the flickers of indignation in Eleanor's darkened eyes, yet beneath the surface glinted shards of insecurity, and perhaps a secret entangled within the veins of family history. "Jealousy, indeed," Poirot murmured to himself. "It is a potent elixir, and those who sip from its chalice may find themselves ensnared by its taste." As he explored the surroundings, Poirot lingered near the tapestry once more, a meticulous woven portrait of the Harrington lineage. The golden threads curled menacingly as the candlelight danced across them, an intricate design obscuring a darker reality. "What remains concealed behind the pretty facade, mes amis?" he murmured, eliciting another gasp from Eleanor. "The sordid past lingers, casting shadows over all that we hold dear." Poirot needed clarity amidst the storm of the unknown. He continued his questioning, turning to Rosalind. "And you, mademoiselle, what had you said to Mr. Reed before this fatal moment? Did you not confront him regarding Victor's legacy?" The shift from guilt to integrity played out upon her features, her answer coming slowly, weighed down with reluctance. He was chasing ghosts. It was he who held the past hostage, not I. I desired nothing more than to free us from the chains of Victor's tyranny." Suddenly, a fleeting thought struck Poirot as he regarded the heavy air around them. The past entwined them all, but the depth of it was punctuated by unyielding darkness. "But what of your involvement in the matters of the estate? You too seek inheritance, do you not?" His words ignited tension, and for a fleeting moment, he caught the glimmer of betrayal that passed between the siblings, revealing their shared ambitions masked by loyalty. As Poirot worked through the tangle of family ties and betrayal, two notions jostled violently in his mind. And just like that, the night twisted again. Ah, the revelation of despair constructs its own web, does it not? Yet was there something else this evening that felt slightly askew? The twist of the candlelight illuminated Eleanor's face, casting her features into relief, a face etched with desperation. Yes, I had known of Thomas's past indiscretions. How they could upend our fates, she confessed, though her words wrapped around every syllable like a spear in the heart. It was then that Poirot realized the dagger had landed in the very nucleus of a tempest they had all participated in creating. An intricate rigging of lies, each character was trapped, dancing unwittingly to the tune of their sorrow. Unraveling the motives behind the tapestry of emotions, he coaxed, "But what of the true secret buried deep? That hidden currency of your existence, something sinister lurking." "Victor knew," Eleanor whispered, and at that moment Poirot was certain. Thomas's demise had been but a catalyst to ignite the buried hostilities within the family, but someone had played their hand, far too aggressively. As the group peered into the abyss that the night had become, he slowly conjured the shimmering truth. The guilt you all share extends beyond mere greed. It encompasses betrayal intertwined with love. Your deepest shade of pain, he announced, leaving the room entrenched in suffocating silence. "Ah, my dear friends," Poirot concluded, a sense of finality weighted within his voice. "There lies within us all a tempest whose fruits we have reaped. In seeking to escape one, master, we have unwittingly become bound to another, that of our own darkest secrets. It is a timeless disturbance that reverberates through us, haunting like the unyielding echo of your ancestors, seeking its reckoning." And as the shadows wove tighter into the fabric of Harrington Manor, a heavy awareness lay suspended in the air, a reflection of choices flawed and destined to echo down the corridor of time. In that lingering moment, Poirot understood that the heart held its secrets far, longer than the storm held its tempest. Chapter 5. The Clockwork Puzzle. A chilling wind howled outside, rattling the windows of Harrington Manor like a ghostly chorus, each gust punctuating the tense silence within. Poirot stood, an island of calm amidst the turmoil, his keen gaze surveying the familiar room, now transformed into a den of shadows and secrets. The room, lit only by flickering candlelight, seemed to come alive, the shadows stretching and twisting as if conspiring to hide the truth within their grasp. A clock on the mantelpiece ticked ominously, its rhythmic sound underscoring the apprehension that clung to the air like a dense mist. This night had already birthed chaos with the death of Thomas Reed, a calamity that had only awakened deeper horrors. Yet beneath the tempest outside, a storm of a different sort brewed among the remaining guests. Poirot, ever observant, could discern the tension radiating from the others, their faces pale under the dim light, eyes darting, as if the walls themselves whispered dark secrets. An unmarked pressure thrummed in the room, a prelude to the horrors yet to unfold. "Mes amis, we linger upon the precipice of further disaster if we do not confront the enigmas left in the wake of Thomas's demise," Poirot pronounced, his voice seemingly floating above the chaos like a boat upon turbulent seas. "For beneath every mask, a truth awaits, and within every heart, a motive can breed." He allowed his gaze to sweep over Eleanor, Rosalind, and Arthur Chambers, a family friend with ambitions of his own, before resting upon the tapestry that had now become an emblem of their tangled web. Everything stained with shadows of both betrayal and blood. Eleanor, her delicate features gaunt with anxiety, clutched a teacup, the porcelain trembling in her grasp. "Monsieur Poirot," she implored, "we cannot linger here any longer. You speak of motives, yet we are but victims of circumstance. It is this manor that has borne witness to every atrocity." The flickering candles danced in the reflection of her dark eyes, the storm outside mirroring the turmoil within. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot replied, his brow furrowed as he studied her. "You harbor fears intertwined with your ambitions, do you not? Perhaps a bond with Mr. Reed that remained unspoken? Every relationship bears its hidden corners." A palpable silence enveloped them, thickening with the weight of unasked questions. Rosalind, her voice slicing through the tension, interjected, her eyes ablaze with indignation. "You presume much, Poirot. Thomas was a fool. He reveled in destroying our family's legacy. Yet you see such venom as an opportunity for scapegoating. Yet her words only heightened Poirot's suspicions, their intensity illuminating the cracks in her facade. Arthur, the final piece of their trifecta, chuckled lightly, a hollow sound that echoed throughout the room. You've all but forgotten me, I see. My own connection to Thomas predates your aspirations and losses, he said, an edge to his tone. But Poirot was not deceived. Arthur had his own association with power and legacy, one steeped in the wealth that came with an inheritance he desperately desired. The flames of greed flickered behind his eyes. In the dark, he appeared cautious, yet in light, much of his nature was laid bare. As Poirot paced slowly, he began noting details. The angle of Eleanor's nod, the flicker of Rosalind's gaze toward the open window, and the way Arthur's hands clenched and unclenched, as if grappling with demons of his own making. Each narrative thread twisted tighter, forming a tapestry far darker than he had conjectured. Now, he intoned, let us indulge ourselves in the pursuit of clarity. Each of you has a story to unveil, and hidden within are threads that bind you all. Murder is a revelation clad in intrigue. What say you, Eleanor? I barely knew Thomas. If there were ever a time to raise accusations, it would hardly involve him, she replied, her voice wavered, betraying her assurance. A mere red herring, my dear. How well do you truly know those whom you claim victimhood of? Jealousy is but one flickering flame among many. Poirot inquired further, steering the conversation wisely, aware of the shadows lurking just beyond their understanding. Days turned into nights, secrets smothered beneath layers of deception, the unrelenting clock in the room ticking away. As he unfurled the narratives, a chilling realization struck. Ah, but I perceive a ticking clock of a different sort, one that speaks to the heart of your discord, Poirot announced, the sudden revelation hanging heavily in the air. For within the murder of Thomas Reed lies not just ambition, but a legacy forged through betrayal, and out of revenge could sprout a pattern of violence. With those words echoing like the tolling of a bell, Poirot peeled back the layers of duplicity that cloaked their intentions. The truth of yesterday's conflicts, entwined with the present's angst, began to collide in a way that twisted the very nature of their fates. But as he pieced together the clockwork of deceit, a darker chamber of their history began to emerge. Yet, dear friends, he declared, driving his analysis deeper like a knife into flesh, what if someone among you has merely donned a mantle of victimhood, when indeed they are the orchestrators of discord? To feign breath amid the noise of life, when one is merely a puppet master orchestrating ill fate? Underneath his calm demeanor, there lurked a tempest of discoveries waiting to explode. The blinkered perspective of only grief cracked wide open. Poirot smiled knowingly, gripping the real secrets entwined among them. As he laid the pieces bare, accusations hurled like daggers across the room. Rosalind's hands trembled, fumbling for balance, her face flushed. You twist words, Poirot. I do not know what you think you have discerned. Yet it is here that I must reveal the saddened truth, he resumed, moving closer to the crux of their calamity. Consider the layers that constrict your world to mere shadows. Each tick of the clock signifies betrayal sown from love, designed to mask your fears of loss. Enough, Eleanor shouted, her tone poised on the edge of despair. But it was this very despair that drew the truth out, revealing how intertwined their narratives had become, a labyrinth lined with grief and longing. Poirot paused, allowing the enormity of it to settle. Will you deny your longing for freedom? He posited, locking onto each of their fearful faces, or admit to the lengths you would go to sever the chains of heritage. In that moment, he revealed the final twist. Ah, but neither of you are the mere perpetrator nor victim. It is the one who loomed in shadows, always waiting, that fashioned this divine hour of exigency. The realization hung heavily in the air, the truth hurtling them quickly toward the precipice of acceptance. The fabric of betrayal woven intricately into their lineage truly untangled, revealing not a mere struggle for wealth, but a quest for liberation from the shackles of their past. With the storm's crescendo echoing in the halls, Poirot delivered the final and most potent line, a reminder of the darkness embedded in every human heart. In seeking to escape from the clockwork of your family's design, you remain caught within its gears. Remember, my dear compatriots, it is the heart that truly tells the time. The silken threads of trust unraveled, leaving a hollow silence that resonated with the storm's fury, a fitting testament to a night where the line between love and betrayal was irrevocably blurred. Chapter 6. The Unseen Betrayal. A low moan twisted through the halls of Harrington Manor, rising and falling like the last breath of a suffocated soul. A heavy storm raged outside, its vengeful winds shrieking through cracked windows, casting flickering shadows over the frightened faces gathered once more in the once venerated drawing room. Eleanor, Rosalind, and Arthur, still embroiled in their earlier tempest of emotions, had scarcely come to terms with the revelations of the preceding night when calamity struck once more. The clock on the mantelpiece had struck 10, and with the herald of each chime came an oppressive sense of foreboding, thickening the air with a tangible dread. Poirot, ever vigilant, sensed the undercurrents swirling around him like the storm outside. He stood slightly apart from the others, observing their pale faces, glistening with sweat or perhaps with the trepidation of unspoken fears. "Mes amis," he began, his voice cutting through the melancholy stillness. "Beneath this very ceiling, shadows dance, alive with secrets yet unveiled." His keen gaze shifted between his companions, each of them a suspect cloaked in an aura of guilt and potential malice. "We find ourselves on fragile ground. Indeed, a single misplaced step may plunge us into the depths of despair." Eleanor's fingers drummed nervously against a table, her dark eyes wide with disbelief as she retorted, "Poirot, please. Is this not enough? We wish for peace, not more discord." The tremor in her tone belied the confidence she attempted to project, and underneath, Poirot perceived the brittle nature of her porcelain facade. "Peace, ma chérie, may often follow a tempest," Poirot replied, his voice imbued with calm yet firm. "But alas, the storm is not yet abated. Another truth lies hidden in this manner, one that festers like an unhealed wound." His mind raced with the weight of what was still left unresolved, recalling the bitterness, jealousy, and sorrow that haunted the Harrington family. A figure loomed in the periphery of each suspect's motive, yet one remained hidden, obscured behind the veil of familial loyalty. As Poirot meticulously detailed the threads of the night's earlier revelations, a sudden scream shattered the air. The sound was raw and unadulterated, its echo reverberating with an unspeakable terror. The drawing room's doors flew open, and a figure collapsed into the room. Rosalind, her face a mask of horror, blood pooling beneath her hands. "Eleanor! Arthur! It is Thomas! He is dead!" Her voice trembled, cascading into the silence that ensued. Within moments, the atmosphere morphed once again into chaos. Arthur rushed to Rosalind's side, his face contorted with a mix of panic and an unnameable emotion as he grasped her arms for support. "What do you mean? How could this be?" he stammered, glancing between Eleanor and Poirot, whose composure remained unyielding amidst the tumult. In his mind, Poirot dissected each layer of their reactions, grasping the chilling reality that each person bore a unique brand of anguish. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot muttered under his breath, eyes narrowing in thought. There was a heaviness that had settled over the group, an aura of dread twisting tighter around them. "I must ask, where did you find him? Was there a method to his demise?" His questions now bounced ominously between them, igniting fresh fears. Rosalind's breath hitched as she recalled, I was merely in the adjoining room when I heard a crash. And there he was, lying," she faltered, breath caught in her throat, panic flashing across her countenance. "Lying where?" Poirot pressed, urging her to fill in the dark spaces of her recollection. "In the library," she blurted, her eyes darting from Eleanor to Arthur, each face cradled with suspicion. "The very room where we spoke of our pasts, our family's destruction." "Ah, the library." Poirot's mind raced, sifting through the implications, each notion a new thread woven into an already complex tapestry of deceit. He felt a chill dance down his spine, and yet he remained composed, his presence a buoy in the tumultuous sea of emotion. "We must investigate. The hour draws late, and the shadows grow long." Dread crept with them as they moved to the dusty library, each footstep muted by the floor's ornate carpets. The flickering candlelight illuminated the scattered remnants of a brief struggle. A spill of ink on the desk, a single page torn from a book, and the scent of something acrid lingering in the air. Poirot's eyes scrutinized every detail while his heart beat steadily. "Tell me, who else has access to this room?" he inquired, his attention drawn to the library's imposing shelves, lined meticulously with volumes of knowledge intertwined with countless secrets. "Only we four, and the staff." But Eleanor hesitated before continuing. "You cannot believe that any of us would be capable of such a thing." Poirot's gaze fell upon Arthur, whose body language betrayed him, arms crossed defensively, posture taut. "On the contrary," he deliberated, "dark motives are often cloaked in the guise of self-preservation." "Preservation?" Arthur echoed, his tone laced with thinly veiled indignation. "If you mean to accuse me—" "Nay, mon ami," Poirot interrupted. "Accusations doth unravel the fabric of reason. Rather, I seek only to understand what may lie beneath your ancestral ties to this estate." He paused for their reactions, observing how fear could blossom in the face of truth. As tensions climbed, Poirot discerned the threads interweaving amongst the trio. Rosalind clung to her anger. Eleanor's expression shifted between fear and determination, while Arthur's intensity danced around unease and barely concealed resentment. The clock ticked methodically in the background, a stark reminder that time was waning. As the storm continued its relentless assault against the manor's sturdy walls, Poirot leaned against the dark wood of the bookshelf, surveying for the unseen betrayal that plagued them. Hidden, like the secrets tethered with their bloodline, lay the catalyst for Thomas's death. Not merely the inevitable demise of a family member, but the confluence of jealousy, ambition, and a shared ancestry riddled with conflicts. His mind raced, recalling a seemingly innocuous detail that now flashed with sinister clarity. The ink spilled on the desk was not an accident, nor was the page torn unintentionally. Each was a thread leading to a web spun of betrayal among themselves. "Ah, mes amis, allow me to unveil my musings as I take one step closer to unraveling this tapestry," Poirot began, pacing as he meticulously connected the dots. The questions fell like gentle rain. What is one willing to sacrifice in the pursuit of liberation from family chains? Rosalind, her eyes bright with revelation, interjected, "You think one of us could have orchestrated this against Thomas?" Poirot's eyes glimmered with a sharpness that edged toward revelation. Indeed, the truth is seldom presented as a mere record of events. Rather, it is cloaked in the shadows of the heart. Each of you has not merely suffered loss. You have also endured the ghosts of your past that longed to rise and confront. In that moment, the room held its breath, and Poirot continued, "You are not only victims of circumstance, but also players in a game of deceit, blending love with betrayal, life with death. And yet, the one who struck the most vulnerable chord among you hides in plain sight." A gasp erupted from Eleanor, her fingers trembling at the realization that everything they had feared would become their reality. "It must not be. It cannot be." "Ah, but once the shadows lift, we grasp the bare truth," he replied, allowing silence to wrap around them as they confronted the darkness lurking within. The final twist came upon them swiftly. Thomas had not died due to an external force. It was a culmination of years spent vying for inheritance. A web of grudges that spun tight when love turned to hate. Poirot stood, a monument of clarity against the chaotic backdrop, and cradled the dismay that overwhelmed him. In seeking to escape from the clockwork of your family's design, you remained caught within its gears. The realization hit them, unraveling the tension that had suffocated the room. Not merely ambivalence, but the emotional weight lifted by unmasking their own truths. "Let it be known, dear friends," Poirot concluded, "the unseen betrayal is often the most potent, emerging from those who thereby claim to hold the greatest affection." As he uttered that final line, the room filled with an excruciating silence. echoing the heartbreak palpable. Among them, the storm outside raged on, the manor's shadows swirling. Now a prison built from the very treachery they had concealed. A single truth lay exposed, heavy in the air, leaving them with the suffocating recognition that often one's greatest threat lies not from the outside, but nestled within familiarity itself. Chapter 7. Deadly Lies. A piercing shriek sliced through the stillness of the Harrington Manor, a dagger of sound that pierced the heart of the storm as rain lashed against the ancient windows. The drawing room, once filled with whispered secrets in the flicker of candlelight, now felt ominous, thick with terror. Poirot stood at its center, the grim weight of tragedy heavy upon his shoulders, while shadows danced like the souls of the tormented across the ornate walls, unveiling the darkness that roamed within. Eleanor fell to her knees, clenching the remnants of her composure. "No, not again. How has this happened?" Her voice trembled, a haunting echo of grief, stark against the relentless roar of the tempest. Arthur leaned against the mantel, his knuckles white as he gripped the wood, trying to ground himself amidst the chaos that surrounded them. Rosalind, eyes wide with fear, sat hunched in a chair, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The trio, bound by blood and fraught with tension, now faced an even darker revelation. Another death, another betrayal, lingering in the shadows of their ancestral home. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his rich baritone, cutting through the fraught atmosphere with a calm authority that belied the storm outside. "We are once more enveloped by dire developments. It appears that Thomas's death was not an isolated event. Indeed, there are deeper currents thrumming beneath the calm surface of our lives, like treacherous waters concealing unseen rocks." His piercing gaze shifted across the huddled figures, seeking truths hidden behind fear-wrenched visages. Eleanor managed to rise, though the tremor of her body betrayed her. "But who could have done this?" she demanded, searching the faces around her as if the answer might materialize in their expressions. "We were together when he died." "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot replied, his eyes darting back and forth as he assessed the myriad emotions swirling around him. Unease fluttered through the air like a restless bird, yet he knew that the darkness of the heart often bore the light of truth. Investigating the crime, scene would yield truths long concealed. Poirot took gentle steps toward the body, now laying limp on the floor of the library, a place of thought, now corrupted by the violence that took place within its walls. Carefully he observed the surrounding area. A chess match disrupted, pieces scattered in haphazard defeat, ink spattered as if in a frenzy, and a torn page from a book, the title long obscured by the chaos. With each detail, he plucked at the threads of narrative that would lead him deeper into the tapestry woven by their family's shared grief. He turned to face the others. "We must unveil the truth, but I require your cooperation. Where were you when the calamity struck? Each of you bears a piece of this puzzle." He eyed them closely, noting the shifting of shadows across their faces like the passing storm clouds. "A mere 5 minutes. I was in the parlor reading," declared Arthur defensively, his posture rigid as though bracing against an invisible attack. "I heard nothing until Rosalind screamed." Rosalind nodded, her eyes darting between Poirot and the others. "And I was also in the adjoining room with Eleanor. We were speaking of our family's past, lost memories, and—" She hesitated, the weight of her words hanging thickly. "And regret." Eleanor's face contorted in distress. "I tried to reach out to him. After our meeting about the estate, I thought to mend our relationship. But he—" Her voice broke, and she faltered, glancing down toward the floor, where lifelessness now reigned. Poirot interjected, "And how did you return to the library, dear Eleanor? Did you notice anything amiss? An open window? A sound? Perhaps another presence?" His eyes narrowed in anticipation, listening carefully to the pauses in their responses. I didn't check. When I saw that the door was ajar, I hurried to see if he was well. I assumed the crashing noise was simply a book falling, a foolish mishap," she stammered, her fervor spiraling into shame. Interesting, Poirot mused. That sound triggered such a response. When the ink spilled upon the desk implies there were conflicting emotions wrought therein. He moved toward the fireplace where the remnants of a carefully burnt log smoldered, its twisted remains fragrant with residual heat. The fire is still warm. It suggests someone sought comfort here, perhaps to contemplate their actions. What of the week prior? What discussions were had about the estate? The question hung in the air, and he felt their unease grow. As they deliberated, Poirot dismissed an initial hunch he had developed earlier. The sibling rivalry masked the higher stakes at play. Seizing the moment, he called attention to the stationery laden with flower motifs, enhancing the scent of desperation. Tell me, does a single rose mean anything to you? An old correspondence? Eleanor sneered. Some foolish notes regarding past grievances. Thomas would have clung to them like a lifeboat. Surely you cannot believe that something so mundane ties to this tragedy? Ah, but it is precisely that which can weave a narrative of deadly lies, Poirot replied, his eyes glistening with the fervor of an investigator on the cusp of profound realization. We must examine further. A sudden gust rattled the shutters, forcing Poirot's mind to examine the apparent incongruences. Each flicker of candlelight revealed their manifestations, people stark against the backdrop of the manor transformed into a dark stage, of their secrets and disquiet. With the overarching tension buoying to an exasperated crescendo, Poirot's thoughts converged, revealing a red herring. Perhaps the anguish that enveloped Eleanor and Arthur was a decoy. The duo of siblings afforded themselves an alliance while the hidden force stoked the fires of familial discord. He gathered them once more, fixing them with a keen gaze. The letters, tangled with bitterness, the fragments of an earlier day whose purpose now escapes us. Yet they tell a lament of rivalry, a struggle for position, an ache so profound that it lay dormant, awaiting a spark. The room pulsed with revelation as the pieces began to unite. Yet not the pointed dagger of murder shall yield the ultimate truth. It is indeed a blade sharpened by the lies we harbor. One among you has walked the path of betrayal beyond reasoning. Eleanor recoiled. How could you possibly say that? Ah, sometimes it is not the acts we commit, but the thoughts we harbor that congeal into unimaginable deeds, he replied, the quiet eminence in his tone underlined by an unsettling tension. As I stand before you, I venture to reveal the brutal truth. Death's specter grips us tightly, and in the shadows one among you emerges as the orchestrator of this deadly web, hidden by the visage of innocence. Gasps filled the air, fear awakening realization as Poirot weighed each face that surrounded him. Finally, as if releasing a secret long held, he pointed toward Rosalind. The truth blossoms freely for those who seek it. Your anger and jealousy towards Thomas, combined with your fragile loyalties, crafted a perfect entryway to extinguish what you deemed an affront, a legacy denied. But Rosalind's eyes flared, remorse transforming into accusations. You think I could resort to violence? His steady gaze remained unmoved. Ah, but your unyielding passion, your vehemence in protecting a shared destiny, blossomed into the most lurid temptation. Love tangled with betrayal, born from your familial camaraderie. The revelation echoed within the chamber as the tension unraveled into waves of anguish. As truths collided and revelations turned over, it became evident that every action stemmed not from monstrous intent, but from a soul stewing in the haze of despair. In the aftermath of the deluge, the air filled with sorrow and muffled anguish, as Poirot regarded the remains of the fraught bonds that had bound them together, through blood only to erupt into chaos. The deadly lie was not one of significant malice, but a heart distorted by its yearning for recognition, so often mistaken for affection. He stepped back into the shadows, observing the sorrow etched across the faces he had come to know. In this consternation, may you discover the true nature of your hearts. The undulations before you shall lead perhaps to salvation, or perhaps to destruction, as the storm persists. He murmured, his final words sinking into the shadows around them. In the stillness that enveloped the air, the whirling storm outside continued to rage, as if echoing the turbulence nestled within their souls. A testament to the deadly lies of love, tangled yet cruelly revealed within the confining walls of Harrington Manor. Chapter 8. The Clock Strikes 3. A muffled thud echoed through the darkened corridors of Harrington Manor, snapping the stillness like a fragile twig beneath a heavy boot. The flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows on the walls, where the remnants of elegance lay tarnished by despair, and outside the relentless tempest roared like an unsated beast. The air crackled with unanswered questions, thick with an unshakable dread that vied to unveil the ominous truth lurking within the very foundations of this ancestral home. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of the library, the storm outside a mere whisper compared to the turmoil swirling within. Yet like a lone candle amidst inky darkness, his poise remained unyielding, sharpened further by the dire revelations of the prior hours. He surveyed the room. The disheveled chess pieces still lay scattered on the floor, a poignant testament to violence intruding upon genteel pastimes. The letters, remnants of concealed grievances, still lay scattered across the table, as if the ending of bitter correspondence wished to speak once more. Time was delicate in this house, each hour marked by despair and treachery as the clock struck 3, an hour steeped in foreboding. As Poirot stepped further into the dimness, he caught sight of the trio who remained under the same roof, their pallid faces illuminated by the flicker of candles, each a study of guilt and dread. Eleanor, her striking features marred with anxiety, clutched a handkerchief as though it were a talisman against her thoughts. Arthur, his demeanor a tense riddle, tightened the grip on his glass, as though strength might be drawn from its fragile form. And then there was Rosalind, her once vibrant spirit, shadowed by vulnerability, staring at the floor with somber resolve. To Poirot's trained gaze, they all shared an exquisite variety of fear, each intricately entwined with the sins of the past and prospects of betrayal still reigning in the present. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot mused quietly, recalling each detail of the evening's calamity. "Shall we explore the depths of this tempestuous storm? For I sense that within this darkness lies more than mere regret." "Regret?" Eleanor's voice trembled, barely a whisper laced with skeptical defiance. "Do not speak of regret, Poirot. It is a word we are too familiar with." "Indeed, and familiarity breeds its own breed of treachery," Poirot replied, keen as ever. His eyes flicked over to a brass clock perched precariously on the mantel, its hands now trembling at the approach of a new hour. "Tell me, dear Eleanor, where did you truly wish to be tonight? In harmony with your brother, or conspiring with shadows long submerged?" Eleanor blanched at Poirot's insinuation, yet her gaze faltered under scrutiny. "I wished only to reconcile with Thomas." "Ah," interrupted Arthur sharply, "you mean the very Thomas who sought to assert dominance over the estate, turning us against one another like pawns in his game?" His voice stung with resentment, revealing the thorns of sibling rivalry that lay coiled beneath the surface of grief. "I did not wish for his death." Eleanor's voice rose in a crescendo of anguish, drawing the attention of both Poirot and Rosalind, who now sat rigidly in her chair. "The last time we spoke, it was to heal, not to harm." Poirot stepped closer, observing the flicker of honesty entwined with desperation in their eyes. "Then let us dissect the events of this evening with careful precision. Each of you holds keys to fragments of this tapestry." He scrutinized them, aware of the clues replete in their postures, the quivers of unspoken truths. "This storm seems to hold its breath for the answers we seek." Rosalind, who had been silent while the verbal exchange unfolded, finally edged forward, her voice barely above a murmur, yet tinged with urgency. "I was in the garden, searching for comfort among the flowers, as Thomas had promised to plant roses. I must go back. I need to see what the dark holds." She seemed on the verge of an epiphany, an understanding deep within her hidden amidst despair. Poirot's attention snapped to her. "Roses, you say? An oft-celebrated symbol of love burdened with thorns." He paused, allowing the words to hang heavily in the air, as if each petal unfolded before their eyes. "Tell me of this promise. It seems tied to a memory that binds you to your brother even now." "I cared for him," Rosalind burst forth, her voice trembling with vehemence. He was family. How could I want the end of him? The candlelight danced as echoes of doubt cascaded through the air, and Poirot continued observing closely the shifting expressions that accompanied each word. The implications were like whispers on the wind, and he understood that while the candlelight was fleeting, the truths hidden within themselves were timeless in consequence. As Poirot paced slightly and drew an analogy, the most sincere of attachments may bear the weight of envy, he declared soberly. Is it not true that upon unveiling forbidden feelings, one may inadvertently provoke despair? The clock chimed ominously, 3 distinct strokes, resonating in the dim space, reverberating with the echo of past choices and present consequences. As the air thickened with unspoken fears, Arthur's voice erupted. This is madness. We have spoken of nothing but circumspect feelings and emotions. Our lives are at stake. Precisely, Poirot pointed out, his tone both calm and assertive. And therein rests the truth beneath layers of fear. My dear friends, you harbor not mere resentment. You are vessels filled with deeply concealed motivations. The envy, the need for recognition. It is clear that each of you perceives the other as a rival, a blockade to personal victories long sought. And yet, as he tangibly pulled at the threads of their interwoven narratives, Poirot began to comprehend a diversion, a red herring that cloaked itself beneath the swell of resentment. The nature of emotional bonds twist and choke until unforgiving despair flourishes unchecked. The turning of the hour hand this evening would not merely mark time. It would unveil each of their nefarious intentions, entangled in truths that coursed through them like a raging river. The clock struck 3, and Poirot's voice took on a grave tone. What of the estate, I ask again? Are there others whom you sought to claim it from? Were there not spoken threads of negotiation that might offer deeper truth beneath your grievances? With another brush of conjecture, a gasp escaped Rosalind. Perhaps it was wealthy suitors, men of privilege wishing to claim that which was not theirs. Perhaps Thomas held secrets of his own. Ah, my dear, Poirot interjected, his eyes brightening with realization. You reveal an intriguing betrayal. He indeed held secrets, but they are not of love lost. They circle the realm of dark desires far removed from familial legacy. Poirot paused, drawing them all into a sobering awareness. One of you has walked the path of betrayal. The masquerade you wear is thinner than it appears. Yet as suspicions swirled about, they anchored within a singular truth, rising through the bitter mist that enveloped them. It was never merely family quarrels that led us to this disquiet, but rather a cauldron of unfortunate truths brewed day by day, whispering to the vulnerable corners of your hearts until a reckoning was forced upon you. As he leaned against the mantel, a shadow of doubt crossed Arthur's visage. The truth burdens us all, Poirot. Yet are we merely pawns in a game orchestrated by outside forces? Perhaps we are reliant on our own shadows, Poirot replied. Swift as the tempest outside, every moment counts. Seek the moments you shared with Thomas. Even as it was struck from time, their reverberations linger. So too shall the truth steep amid it. The clock echoed once more, the air thickening with dread as their minds began to unearth deeper connections among them. At that fateful third stroke, when they believed the darkness might snuff out their spark of resolution, Poirot continued, Let us not forget, betrayal wears faces we know, even among family. Together we may unravel this murky tapestry, for the truth can pierce through the darkness. The tension broke as realization struck. The fear had morphed into a shared vulnerability, and yet one tremor remained. One final twist awaited to unfurl amid this gathering chaos. Slowly, as the storm outside began to unleash its fury, Poirot knew this would not be merely an unveiling of truths, but the reformation of hearts that had long concealed their weary burdens. We must embrace the shadows between us, my friends, for they are shaped by choices we've made. The clock strikes 3. Will you follow that hour, or shall you remain shackled by your own entanglements? The answer lingered in their eyes, poised to redefine their fates forever. Chapter 9. Whispers in the Wind. A faint wail pierced through the silence, a spectral sound that floated on the gusts of the relentless storm, as if the very walls of Harrington Manor were lamenting the darkness they contained. In the wake of the chaos left in the aftermath of Thomas's demise, the rain lashed against the windows, each drop echoing the chilling secrets that churned within the hearts of the remaining inhabitants. As the candlelight flickered ominously, Hercule Poirot stood resolutely before the grand hearth, his sharp mind churning like the tempest outside, diligently piecing together the tapestry of deception that swirled around him. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he thought, feeling the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on the very fabric of this house. The library, once a sanctuary of intellect and refinement, now bore the marks of an emotional battleground. Shadows danced along the walls, casting elongated specters that reflected the turmoil etched across the faces of Eleanor, Arthur, and Rosalind. Each individual wore their fear like a cloak, yet within that veil, Poirot recognized the nuances of betrayal lurking in their depths. My dear friends, the winds whisper secrets, and within my ears they become cries of despair, Poirot declared, his voice calm but authoritative. Whom do I address first, and what shadows do you wish to shed light upon? Eleanor's eyes were haunted, her spirit flickering like the flame of a candle forced to bear the tempest's wrath. We are haunted not by the memory of Thomas alone, Monsieur Poirot, she uttered, her voice trembling with barely concealed anguish. There are whispers in this house that threaten to disclose more than we can bear. Her heart raced, catching a breath that echoed the pulse of heightened tension. Yet it was Arthur who paled noticeably at Eleanor's words, his hand clutching a chess piece that had found itself amidst the chaos of the evening, its weight now a token of inner conflict. I am more concerned with the very nature of our circumstances, Poirot, he interjected, a jagged edge to his voice. We are all but marionettes arranged on this wretched stage, helpless to the forces that draw our strings. Rosalind, having been the quiet observer thus far, flinched at the turn of conversation. For too long have we allowed our fears to dictate our actions, she said softly, clenching a handkerchief that bore the vibrant scent of roses. We must not allow Thomas's death to become a mere pawn in our doom. Her eyes darted nervously, and Poirot caught the hint of a revelation buried beneath her facade of melancholy. With his agile mind, Poirot began to gather threads of their narratives, weaving intricate pathways through the darkness that cloaked them. His beady eyes pierced into the quiet breaks in their dialogue, seeking not merely words but the unspoken fears that fueled them. And yet, dear Eleanor, you dismiss the idea of rebuke, Poirot queried, his thoughts sculpting questions with precision. What, my dear, did your brother uncover that sent shivers through your spine? Her breath caught. She glanced at Arthur, whose expression tightened at the hint of concealed knowledge. He spoke of family grievances, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, of how the estate was to be divided, leaving much in the hands of those he deemed unworthy. As the striking of the clock reverberated through the room, the weight of each unresolved suspicion hung thick in the air. Time, it seemed, had encased their reality within an unyielding grasp. Ah, but was it merely the estate that had his attention? Poirot posed. Or were there whispers of suitors, men of means who would covet more than mere land? Rosalind flinched at his words, and Poirot noted a flicker of alarm cross her features. Thomas had spoken of finding a worthy suitor, but none were ever to my liking, she responded, her thoughts betraying a deeper desire not solely ingrained in romantic attachment, but perhaps the control it suggested over inheritance. It was complicated, Poirot. There were those who desired his demise even before. Sparks of anger were ignited. Oh, how wonderful are the webs we weave, n'est-ce pas? Poirot mused as he gazed upon them, savoring the increasing tension as each piece unfurled. Whispers in the wind were but veils to the truth that lingered just beyond reach. Do any of you realize that the shadows we cast are merely reflections of our internal casts of light? At that moment, a crash of thunder reverberated through the manor, causing all three of his suspects to flinch as the candle flames flickered uncertainly. The storm seemed to respond to the turmoil in the space. Who was the true architect of Thomas's demise, and what nefarious secrets lay entangled within their hearts? The answers lay somberly awaiting to be unearthed amidst the maze of emotions each of them possessed. In piercing the depths of their stormy disquiet, Poirot sank deeper into his investigation, drawing forth revelations buried beneath layers of charm and deceit. While every person in the room displayed signs of distress worthy of suspicion, a subtle truth began to crystallize. He approached Eleanor, whose fingers trembled against the table edge. "Eleanor, tell me," Poirot said deliberately, "what is it that you must conceal? We have all suffered, yet ambition has a way of corrupting even the purest hearts." "I desire only peace, Poirot," she fired back. But Poirot observed the quivering of her lips, the subtle twitch in her gaze that revealed the weakness behind her unwavering facade. And yet in that moment of confrontation, he felt a disturbance in the currents of emotions, one that pointed toward an uncomfortable revelation that lay beneath. As Poirot continued his inquisition, he detected the falsehoods wrapped in their contradictions, each seeking refuge from their overwhelming guilt while cloaked in veils of confession. Rosalind suddenly drew breath, a cry desperately clawing to escape her some buried truth. "I have lost everything," she exclaimed, her sorrow spilling forth in waves. "I lost my brother before he died. He was torn between two worlds. He could not perceive the betrayal, neither my love nor my pain." Yet just as Ellen's words hung gravely in the air, as if one's admission could push someone over the precipice, Poirot felt a nagging doubt. Had he missed something vital? In that moment, the clock chimed again, its echoes reverberating deeper than ever, as a final stroke announced not the midnight that brought resolution, but the impending danger time itself. Promised. Poirot stood, gathering his thoughts, when suddenly Arthur interjected, the strength of his indignation bearing the tempestuous, raw fears of a man cornered. "How can we hold the faculty for truth in the midst of this madness?" "Perhaps, dear Arthur," Poirot countered, "the madness is a guise, a carefully crafted deception to mask the orchestrated symphony that has played for us all. What I seek now, my friends, is the truth concealed within your shadows." Just then, in a sudden twist of the unfolding narrative, a letter slipped from the corner of the table, the flickering light illuminating the embossed initials. "A letter from Thomas?" Poirot gasped as he grasped it tightly, holding up the unfolded parchment. What he read was layered in confessions of love and jealousy, seeking solace in yet another suitor amidst the tumult of family disharmony. As Poirot began to piece together each confession, holding profound significance, a storm of realization burst forth, a final reveal, just stating within the accusations stirred in betrayal by tangled emotions. Red herrings floated within the air of suspicion, like fallen leaves caught in a raging storm, continuing to obscure who had truly been the architect of Thomas's demise. He felt the cold grasp of betrayal, realizing instinctively it was never the fragile familial ties that had brought this tragedy to fruition, but rather, their deception had thrived upon it. With the others watching, hearts attuned to impending tumult, Poirot finally spoke, his voice heavy with finality. "It is the emotional bonds we pursue, not the familial thread, that has driven us here, leading to envy laced with longing, which brewed to the tempest we now live within." He turned toward them, eyes glistening with unfurling truths. "In our pursuit of deliverance, it is we who have betrayed ourselves. Now tell me, was this not the very tragedy that wove you two together, a duplicitous thread of affection masked in shadows?" The storm raged, with fervor outside, yet the room became laden with a thickening atmosphere of truth. Suspicion now lay tangled amongst them all, their hearts bare to the impactful blow yet to fall. As consciousness of betrayal unfurled, Poirot's voice rang out above the cacophony, an anchor to their tremors. "To seek the truth in the shadows, my friends, is to claim your own hearts back from its very depths. Were you not willing to play the game until death drew you a fatal hand?" And in that room of whispers and conflicted hearts, as the storm writhed with fury beyond the walls of Harrington Manor, the shadows carved the destinies yet unwritten, dark paths entwined with the echoes of every single moment they had shared. Chapter 10. Deception Unraveled. The chilling silence enveloped Harrington Manor, punctuated only by the relentless patter of rain against the windows, a symphony of sorrow echoing through the haunted halls. A figure moved through the shadows, a specter in search of truth, while another, life lay lifelessly sprawled upon the grand staircase, fractured by betrayal and discord. The flickering candlelight waxed and waned, casting long silhouettes that danced menacingly across the walls, each movement a harbinger of the chaos that had unfurled within. Hercule Poirot stepped forward, his keen gaze falling upon the lifeless form. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured, absorbing the tragedy that lay before him as a palpable fog of despair. Thomas Harrington, last seen hours earlier, yet here, his life extinguished, brought to an abrupt end amid the treachery of familial bonds. The evidence of his demise whispered through the room, a tapestry woven with threads of jealousy, greed, and unspoken truths. Eleanor, Thomas's sister, entered the scene, her face ashen, the weight of solemnity heavy upon her brow. "Monsieur Poirot, I can hardly bear the thought of my brother's end. Whoever could have done this?" A tremor quivered in her voice, though her eyes held the weight of secrets long buried. Arthur, the estate's steward, lingered just behind her, his hands clenched, knuckles white against the darkness. The manor was a prison, a stage for deceit. He always spoke of shadows lurking in our lineage. His words fell heavy in the air, as if echoing truths he was unwilling to fully disclose. Poirot's discerning eyes caught the fleeting exchange between the two, a moment laden with significance. "Indeed, Arthur, perhaps it is not merely the deceased that was imprisoned here, but all who dared tread upon this fallen estate." He observed Eleanor's posture shift slightly, as if stifled by unrelenting remorse. As Poirot continued his inquiries, the atmosphere thickened around them, like the oppressive storm raging outside. He turned to Rosalind, a close friend of the family, who had recently suffered the loss of her own brother. "You were amongst the last to speak with Thomas, were you not, mademoiselle?" he inquired, the iron cadence of his words laced with an intensity that urged her to bare her soul. Rosalind's eyes widened, a storm raging within them. "Yes, but it was—" She hesitated, her voice frail. "It was only trivial talk of matters beyond our control. Nothing that could have led to such—" She faltered, grief bleeding into her speech. "But I cannot say I was a friend to Thomas, nor can I even claim to understand his ties." "Ah, but that is where the enigma lies," Poirot murmured, contemplating her response. In her reluctance, he detected the faintest trace of evasion, as if a darker truth lay beneath the layers of her grief. "Tell me, what ties did he not cherish?" A glimmer of frustration flickered across Rosalind's face before she redirected her gaze toward the opulent surroundings, as if searching for an answer hidden among the gilded mirrors and ornate woodwork. With each moment, Poirot meticulously pieced together the narrative, the threads of deception growing thicker as he examined the web woven around them. Eleanor's demeanor oscillated between regret and an unsettling resolve. Arthur exhibited a nervous energy, dangerously close to unraveling in his pursuit of the truth. And Rosalind's unwillingness to confront her past raised the specter of ulterior motives that she had yet to recognize. As the storm raged outside, Poirot unveiled the heart of the matter, the inheritance tied to Thomas's death. "This estate, mademoiselle, holds value far more precious than mere bricks and mortar," he declared, eyes piercing into Eleanor's, as he addressed her with a calm authority. "It is not just the land, but rather the bonds, the legacy of love and betrayal that sparked that fateful night." The tension escalated as he perceived Arthur's anxious fidgeting, each motion a tremor of barely contained secrets that whispered of a hidden history. "I had my reasons," Arthur muttered, the words spilling forth like an unrestrained flood. "I sought to protect the estate from those unworthy of its legacy. Thomas was too blinded by the allure of wealth to see the truth." Poirot's mind clicked into gear, something stirring within the tale Arthur spun, his desire to conceal and preserve woven into the very fabric of resentment. As the night wore on, Poirot gathered fragments of the peculiar dynamic binding the trio, a tapestry embroidered with threads of familial strife and hidden ambitions. Just as one suspect began to distance themselves from the evidence, another would emerge with an alternate narrative, pulling pulling against the tightly woven strands of deceit for which Poirot sought clarity. In the crescendo of tension, Rosalind's voice trembled as she revealed a startling confession. Thomas desired to forge his own path, but familial loyalty suffocated him. Her words struck like thunder, reverberating through the air, the weight of her revelation palpable. Suddenly, a dark shadow stirred in the corner of Poirot's observation. The subtle shift of Arthur's gaze toward Eleanor was imperceptible. She, too, bore the mark of inner turmoil, yet shrouded within her facade of sorrow. As dawn began to break, signaling the end of the dark night and the approach of a new day, Poirot aligned the final pieces of the puzzle before him. Each of you, he said, surveying their expressions carefully, stood at the crossroads, where love twisted into betrayal. He continued, the poignancy of his voice resonating through the heavily charged atmosphere. Yet it is you, Eleanor, who have wielded the knife that cut through the delicate fabric of loyalty. The revelation fell like a thunderclap as Arthur's face blanched further, disbelief flooding his features. I only sought to protect him, she shouted, the anger and fear intertwining in an emotional tempest. But he knew my ambition, my desperation to ensure our legacy endured. I never meant... Ah, but therein lies the irony, Poirot interjected, his sharp deduction transforming the atmosphere once more. You sought preservation, yet it is born from avarice, an insatiable need that eclipsed your brother's life. At that pivotal moment, Poirot's gaze turned to a hidden compartment within the study, where a concealed letter had been buried beneath an unattached mantle. The embossed initials on the parchment were unmistakable, some illusion cast over their perceptions since the storm had begun. This letter, he mused aloud, unfolding its contents, reveals a clandestine affair, a hidden engagement to a man of wealth, preparations that would have irreversibly severed the familial ties in favor of a greater ambition. As he pieced the threads into clarity, he discerned the true architect behind Thomas's demise, not a singular villain, but rather the woven truce of deceit, where love and ambition collided, rendering them each complicit in their brother's tragic fate. With finality, Poirot locked eyes with each of them, his words resonating with the somber weight of revelation. Perhaps it is time for you all to confront not only the truth of this tragic end, but also the desolation of being ensnared by a web of your own design. As gloom enveloped the dawn, the lingering shadows of betrayal would remain tethered to their fates, even as the hearts involved attempted to escape the thunder of their own making. Chapter 11. The Final Countdown. The candlelight flickered ominously, illuminating the grim contours of Harrington Manor. Outside, an unrelenting storm raged, rain pummeling the ancient stone walls, while distant thunder resonated like a mournful dirge. Within the dimly lit study, Hercule Poirot stood stoically, his keen eyes surveying the unsettling tableau before him. The tension in the air was thick, palpable, as if the very walls conspired to keep secrets long buried. In the stillness, a chilling realization gripped him. Time was slipping away. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused softly to himself, confronting the reality that another life was poised, on the precipice of ruin. Eleanor Harrington loomed in the shadows, a specter of despair, her countenance marred by guilt and hidden ambition. Behind her, sequestered within his own thoughts, stood Arthur, the steward, whose hands, white-knuckled and fidgeting, betrayed the depths of his inner turmoil. Lastly, there was Rosalind, the family friend, whose sorrow veiled an unsettling restlessness. The storm that raged outside obscured a tempest brewing within. Each of them bore the remnants of betrayal in their spirits, yet like moths to a flame, they were inexorably drawn to the truths they dared not confront. The night deepened, and Poirot decided to delve into their layered histories, beginning with the dark undercurrents that connected them. Allow me to remind you, he began, his voice calm yet penetrating, that the hourglass leaks grains of sand. Our time is limited, yet the truth it eludes. With every word, Poirot could feel the mounting dread that thrummed in the air. Staring intently at Eleanor, he asked, "Tell me, mademoiselle, did not your brother's ambitions threaten the very legacy you sought to preserve?" Eleanor's gaze flickered momentarily, before she regained her composure. You misunderstand me, Monsieur Poirot. Thomas was consumed by his own desires, ambitions that transcended our familial connections. I only wished to ensure our lineage flourished, not crumble at his hands. Her voice quivered with conviction, yet beneath it, Poirot detected a veneer of evasion. Interesting indeed, Poirot murmured, noting the shift in the atmosphere. And what of you, Arthur? You were certainly not merely a silent custodian of the Harrington estate. I sense a deeper allegiance, a loyalty that transcends duty. As he examined Arthur's demeanor, Poirot observed a flicker of anger ignite in his eyes, chased quickly by a wave of fear. Arthur faltered. I serve the estate and its heirs. Nothing more. But Poirot's gaze remained unyielding, unmasking lies, heavy with consequence. Rosalind interjected, her voice tremulous yet insistent. But it was not only the brothers' rivalry that loomed, was it? Gossip echoed through the halls, whispers of betrayal and hidden passions. Poirot felt the crackle of tension as she turned toward Eleanor, their shared history entangled in a web of ambition and despair. Poirot turned his attention to her, his gaze steady. Tell me, mademoiselle, what purpose did gossip serve in the heart of Harrington Manor? And what did you stand to gain by fostering such a climate of distrust? Rosalind inhaled sharply, glancing at the sisters' frayed bond as the tempest outside howled. As the hours inched by, Poirot meticulously examined each confession, each admission laden with complexity. Pieces of their past swirled around him like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. Arthur's vigilance continued to betray his aura of propriety. Every glance toward Eleanor sparked an ineffable emotion. Yet it was Rosalind's silence, her reticence to dismantle the facades encasing their truths, that peppered his ruminations with unease. Ah, mon ami, Poirot murmured to himself, intrigued by the layered deceit. Each gesture, each glance spoken in their language of secrets veiled a greater story, one he was determined to unearth as the clock ticked ominously in the background. The ticking grew louder, drowning out the storm as he directed his focus back to Arthur. Tell me, what would compel you to protect the estate at such a perilous cost? I am loyal to the roots of this land, Arthur exclaimed, the fervor in his voice igniting a spark of doubt in Poirot's mind. Thomas wished to sell the estate, to dismantle the legacy we all cherished. I could not allow this to happen. Eleanor responded sharply. And yet, you allowed him to wander alone into the darkness. You stood by and watched as he sought to rift our family apart. The venom in her voice echoed with fervent heartbreak, intertwining their fates within the conflict they navigated. Poirot raised a hand, the pressure of moments creeping ever closer. Time is a relentless tyrant. We must illuminate that which remains submerged. As shadows elongated, he directed his scrutiny once more towards Rosalind and the undercurrents tethered to her emotions. Your history with Thomas, a shared bond of grief over a lost brother, impacts your standings within this tempestuous interior. But how, I wonder, do you translate that into action? I merely had a conversation with him, she replied defensively, her eyes darting to Eleanor before glancing back at Poirot. It was nothing more than a reluctant alliance against our shared sorrows. The weight of unspoken words hung heavily in the room as the truth tantalizingly teased the edges of Poirot's mind. Amidst the storm's chaos, the culmination of their intertwining narratives snapped taut, leading Poirot towards the inevitable revelation. Yet one significant clue eluded him, overshadowed by the relentless storm bearing more than it unveiled. As the chilling minutes slipped past, voices rose and sacrifices and secrets unspooled. The errant clock struck midnight as Poirot gathered them, piecing together their stories, a reflection of shattered identities amidst horrifying truths. Beloved, the storm unfolds before us, revealing not only the heart but the harrowing price of your entanglements. And within this ominous hour, I foresee a final broken promise lingering, waiting to unveil itself. Whispers of chaos intertwined with shadows flickering past, weaving threads of truth and deception into a singular narrative. The electric tension in the room was almost unbearable as Poirot zeroed in on the contours of Eleanor's face, something darker lurking beneath her layers of grief. In a striking moment of clarity, Poirot announced, "The material wealth you sought to preserve dulled your judgment, bringing forth a despair so profound that it eclipsed familial loyalty." Just then, the flickering candle extinguished, plunging them into darkness. A figure lashed out in the void, an act of desperation born from fear and avarice, the harbinger of fate. As the storm screamed in ire, Poirot's heart raced, discerning the chaotic nature of confession born from conflict. Then it hit him like the clanging of an alarm bell, the truth conjoining past betrayals with the present. The anguish you sought to quell, Eleanor, transformed into murder, an unintentional dark act against your very flesh. Yet the shadows gasping for salvation lead only deeper into despair. The tumult settled as he faced them all, the weight of their anguished truce hanging thick in the air. Your lure was ambition, but the dagger drawn was desperation, imbuing every confession with complicity. As the storm outside began to fade, harmony replaced chaos in the aftermath of Poirot's revelations. The final twist of fate dealt a cruel hand, one born from despair, the breaking of bonds severed not by hatred but aching love, twisted in naivete. With elegance and clarity, Poirot glanced at each of them in turn, his voice resonant with solemnity. "Perhaps, my friends, we are all poets of our demise, bound by the stories we create, though the ending may lay marred by the very hearts we misguide." With those words echoing in the waning storm, the lingering shadows were laid bare, revealing a path forever altered by the horrors of their own design. The darkness subsided, leaving behind the remnants of truth, forever inscribed within the walls of Harrington Manor. Chapter 12. The Last Chime. The stillness of Harrington Manor was shattered by a single, blood-curdling scream that echoed through the ancient halls, slicing through the cold, damp air like a knife. The storm raged outside, its fury mirroring the chaos that erupted within. Rain pelted the windows, forming rivulets that trickled down like sorrowful tears, drawing back the curtain on a tragedy unfolding beneath its very roof. Hercule Poirot, summoned by the outbreak of horror, stood poised at the threshold of the study, eyes narrowing as he assessed the chaos before him. In the flickering candlelight, Eleanor Harrington lay lifeless on the polished mahogany floor, her gown stained with a crimson blossom, a stark contrast to the elegant surroundings. The remnants of a bloodied letter lay crumpled beside her, its secrets suffocated amidst the unfolding drama. A hand trembled at the doorway. Arthur, the loyal steward, appeared, frozen in shock, while Rosalind clutched the edge of the mantelpiece, her face pale and the shadows beneath her eyes giving way to a deep-seated fear. "Mon ami," Poirot murmured to himself, collecting his thoughts as the clock on the mantel began to chime distantly. Each stroke a reminder that time was both an ally and an adversary in the pursuit of truth. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things. The storm abated momentarily, as if sensing the weight of the tragedy within. Rising from the floor, Poirot's mind spun with the intricacies of the unfolding mystery. He turned to face the remaining inhabitants of the manor, sensing the web of emotions tangled in their midst. "Arthur," Poirot initiated with a calm yet commanding tone, "what transpired here on this fateful evening?" Arthur's gaze darted around the room as if surveying the specters of guilt that loomed large. "There was a quarrel, Monsieur Poirot, a discussion gone awry," he stammered, his hands wringing together. "Eleanor felt threatened by Thomas's ambitions. She believed he sought to take control of the estate, which she was determined to protect at all costs." Poirot's penetrating gaze remained trained on Arthur, piquing his interest. "Protecting the estate, a noble endeavor, yet it binds oneself to a treacherous path. Perhaps Eleanor was too deeply ensnared in her own designs." He motioned for Arthur to recount the events that led to this tragic crescendo. The steward hesitated, swallowing hard, revealing a tangle of conflicted loyalty. He began to relay how Eleanor confronted Thomas earlier that evening, hurling accusations that were laced with desperation. She claimed he had forsaken their family heirlooms for the allure of financial freedom. "She couldn't bear the thought of loss," Arthur recounted, fervor rising in his voice. Yet the flicker of fear persisted beneath the surface. emitting an unsettling sincerity that Poirot found compelling. "Rosalind," Poirot continued, pivoting towards her, with deliberate grace, "you were also privy to this turmoil, were you not? You must possess insights into Eleanor's state of mind." Rosalind's eyes widened, a tremor coursing through her as she replied, "I did speak with her earlier. We were once close, bonded by our grief over Thomas. But things changed, Poirot. There were secrets she harbored, ambitions lurking in the shadows." As the strands of dialogue ensnared the room, Poirot keenly observed subtle gestures, the tightening of Rosalind's jaw, as she mentioned secrets and ambitions. What secrets would compel Eleanor to act against her own flesh and blood? He inquired softly, yet insistently. Faced with Poirot's resolute curiosity, Rosalind averted her gaze, betraying an unwillingness to divulge all. "There were rumors of Thomas's past," she finally confessed, flecks of fear in her voice. Whispers spoke of his entanglements, his hidden relationships that threatened to unravel the fabric of this family. Eleanor was scared, lost in her own storm. As the harrowing tale unfolded, Poirot sensed the wavering truths entwined in their confessions. The clock chimed once more, a heartbeat resonating through the atmosphere, amplifying the suffocating tension. He turned to Arthur, studying him with a glimmer of calculation. "And what of you, my dear Arthur? Did you not harbor your own ambitions for this estate?" The steward paled, looking as if the weight of Poirot's gaze might crush him. "I only wish to serve the estate. It is my family's legacy too. I could not allow it to fall to ruin." The fervency in Arthur's voice clawed at the shadows, hinting at an underlying agenda, one that Poirot knew was worth further scrutiny. With renewed vigor, Poirot methodically sifted through the evidence, each moment unfurling like the pages of a hidden tome. The room grew darker as the storm outside raged anew, lending an ominous ambiance to their discussions. The crumpled letter, neglected in the chaos, whispered of truths buried beneath secrecy, and Poirot made a note to lend it further attention. The next morning, as dawn broke, Poirot gathered both suspects in the study once more, their faces gray with the weight of uncertainty. "My friends," he began, his tone calm yet imbued with authority, "we stand on an axis, one forged by ambition, betrayal, and desperation. The truth lurks amidst the turmoil, waiting to be unveiled." Poirot presented a tale woven through intentions and emotions, piecing together the clues while weaving in a red herring. The notion that Eleanor, in a fit of rage, had claimed a life in the name of self-preservation. Arthur's motives continued to shift, a loyalty to the Harrington name battling against hidden aspirations. As the struggle deepened, Poirot revealed a startling twist, tracing the bloodied letter, its contents scrawled in Eleanor's elegant hand, confessing her fears of abandonment and betrayal. Someone conspired to twist her reality, framing her fears. It was not Eleanor who sought violence, but rather the weight of deceit that claimed her. Then, with deftness and clarity, Poirot unveiled the final twist, a tragic revelation that sent ripples through the hearts of those gathered. The true architect of this calamity was not Eleanor, nor Arthur, but rather, he paused for effect, allowing the suspense to linger. "You, Rosalind. Your jealousy drove you to destroy her. Thomas's affections granted her strength and power, while you were rendered a mere shadow." The revelations hung heavy in the air, the darkened past entwining their fates. Rosalind's face twisted in a mixture of anguish and frustration, but Poirot continued undeterred. "It is a cruel twist of fate that breaks the ties once strong. In your desperation, you have ensured your own undoing." As the storm outside finally ceased its wrath, the fragile bonds were left forever altered. "Perhaps, my friends," Poirot intoned quietly, "it is the complexity of our very hearts that weaves both joy and ruin." With those words, the truth etched itself upon the walls of Harrington Manor, exposing the depths of ambition and betrayal that lingered long after